The karma is crushing here. Jonathan Turley, who's a great constitutional mind, but Jonathan Turley explains irony in Letitia James' legal defense. He's a great constitutional mind, a great legal mind. I like Jonathan Turley's take, but he's right. The karma is crushing. The irony abounds because she coming out talking about, remember when she was going after Trump, she was saying no one's above the law, but yet she's sitting here acting like she's above the law, like she shouldn't be held accountable. And like what she did wasn't a big deal when we all know that not to be true. So we're going to cover all of that. We're going to talk about it. We're going to play the clip from Jonathan Turley. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. Has a link to my Patreon, and that's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my X account, so follow me there as well. All right, so let's get into this news. Now, this comes from the Daily Caller, and they report that GWU law professor Jonathan Turley appeared on Fox Business Thursday to call out breathtaking irony in Democratic New York Attorney General Letitia James's legal defense. Federal authorities opened a criminal investigation into James after a federal housing official accused her of falsifying mortgage documents, which clearly she did. I mean, how does she call her? You got to understand, people, unless you a homeowner, you purchased a house before and you put it in escrow and all of that stuff and hired a lawyer to look over your stuff. This is why you have a lawyer look over your stuff, to make sure that none of these mistakes happen, because if there's a mistake on there, you will be held accountable for it. So she had her father down as her husband, not once, but twice. How do you make that same mistake twice? I don't understand. There's no excuse here. It's no excuse. And that's just one of the many things that the fraud that she committed when it came to her mortgages, I should say. But during an appearance on the Evening Edit, Turley pointed out what he sees as a glaring double standard and how James is now pleading for the leniency she once denied President Donald Trump. Wow. So let's get right to the clip. Here we go.
Expertise. In your assessment, how serious are these charges against Letitia James?
Well, these all have to be combed out. The James defense team is saying that there were contradictions that were corrected, that, for example, that home was the primary residence of the other signatory. But there are contradictions here. It's an ironic defense because they're saying, look, if the bank simply looked into this on their own, they could see, that these were more units than just four, that this was not the primary residence of James. That's a type of understanding and leeway that she refused to allow to Donald Trump. She insisted that everything that was signed in her name, and it was signed in his name, I should say, really are bound legally to him. And so they said you have an obligation to make sure everything filed was absolutely accurate. So the karma is crushing here. But the greatest irony, of course, is to hear her counsel and her spokesperson say, this is just wrong because Trump campaigned on moving against his enemies.
Yeah, that's exactly what she did. She campaigned on running against or going after Donald Trump. That's what makes it so funny. Everything that she's saying is projection.
For those of us who have covered this litigation for years, having those words come out of the mouths of James' staff really is breathtaking. She campaigned on a promise to bag Donald Trump on something. She didn't even bother to name what it was. She literally campaigned on the promise that she would nail him on anything, and then she filled in the violation later.
Facts. All facts. Despicable work. God don't like ugly. This is why the chickens are coming home to roost for her. Turley emphasized that James is now leaning on the various argument she once rejected. James, who pledged during her 2018 campaign to investigate Trump, announced a lawsuit Sunday accusing his administration of deliberately cutting funds to the Department of Health and Human Services. She filed a separate suit in 2022 alleging Trump inflated the value of his properties to obtain loans, which resulted in a $450 million judgment in early 2024. It was just ridiculous. Almost $500,000 for these no pun intended, trumped up charges. But James is now facing serious scrutiny over allegations she falsified mortgage filings, an investigation sparked in part by the on-ground reporting from Nick Pope and the Daily Caller News Foundation. And the people that are the initially investigated this, that found this out, he was actually a Democrat. He said, he came out, I watched the video of him. He said, he was like, they try to make this like a political thing. He was like, it's not political. He was like, Letitia James was just on my list of people to investigate. And he was like, her name came up. And so I investigated. He was like, I'm actually a Democrat. So they try to make like this a political hit job, but it's not that. But Pope and fellow reporter Miles Moore were the first journalists to visit the properties in question. They uncovered details that challenged James's official claims and raised new questions about who actually resides there. So if you're going after people like that, Letitia James, if you're trying to take out people for stuff that they certainly didn't even do, you better make sure your house is in order first. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave y'all comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.